This is the Corsair 2500x, and we're gonna build a beast of a gaming PC for 1440p gaming here in 2024 because I really wanna try out this awesome case. It was just released in February. It's Corsair's coolest looking case, in my opinion, that they've released here in the last few years, or just at all, really, because it's the fish tank style, it's dual chamber, and I'm really excited to build in it. Now, this video is not sponsored, but when I told Corsair what I was going to do, they were nice enough to send over a few parts. Not all the parts, I did buy some of them myself, so let's go over what I bought and what they sent out. First of all, they sent out this tower cooler right here, the A115. It's a beefy tower cooler. Like, it's got several heat sinks. It comes with 2 fans. It's gonna be a beast, but it's gonna be plenty to cool the CPU that we're gonna use. And we'll go over the CPU GPU combos a little bit later in the video. I just want you to see these awesome products from Corsair. They also sent us out 2 packs of their RS120 Max fans as the SSD falls down over there. 120mm, all black, sleek fans. They sent us 6 of them. I don't know if we'll use all 6. It just depends on how it looks for the case, but we're going for a stealthy all black build here, which is the look we were going for when I, talked to Corsair and they sent this out to us. So I'm really pumped and excited about that. And the last thing that Corsair sent over was 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM. This RAM is gonna be really fast, 6000 megahertz. That's the sweet spot right now for either platform. Now, I know this might not be the case later on when the new stuff comes out here in a few months, but right now, 6000 megahertz is a really good sweet spot. 32 gigs, it's gonna be a beast. Can't wait for you to see it at the end. Now, if we're gonna use all these Corsair parts, of course, I bought the case myself, and if we're gonna use all these Corsair parts, we might as well fill in the rest of the parts with Corsair, just to kind of show you, and I'll show you total price if you were to try to do this yourself at the end. Now, of course, you can replace any of these parts with RGB, if that is what you choose to do. This SSD is super fast. It's the MP600 Pro LPX. Now, it's 1 terabyte. It's got some crazy read and write speeds. 7,100 sequential read and 5,800 write. That's really fast, so that's gonna be awesome for video editing, gaming, downloading your games, running everything super smooth. Like, you're not gonna be disappointed with that. And it comes with its own heatsink. Now, I don't remember off the top of my head if the motherboard we ordered has a heatsink or not, but if it doesn't, this one does, and that's awesome. And you're probably gonna need it for those speeds. And lastly, we got a Corsair power supply here, 750 watts, real basic, but it's 80 plus gold. It'll get the job done. So let's start building in this case, and I'll go over the rest of the parts as we go. So let's pop the side panels off, which just unscrew those screws and they pop right off, which is nice. And they actually have some pretty heavy duty hooks here on the side. Oh, there we go. I got it off. It's got plastic on both sides, so I don't have to worry about fingerprints till the very end. Let's see how easy the panel over here on this side comes off. It looks like in order to take it off though, you may have to take a screw out right there. So let's see, I gotta use a smaller bit. That's a little tiny screw right there. Okay, so you did have to take both these tiny screws out here in order to get off this side panel, and it kind of like hooks into the side right there. But this gives us a lot more room to kind of work around in there and use my handy dandy magnetic tray here so I don't lose those. Looks like we can fit 3 fans here. Looks like we can probably fit 3 fans at the top and 3 fans, probably more tthan 3 fans at the bottom if we wanted to. And of course we got the place for the fan at the back. So let's start putting these fans in and see what that's like. So these are the 120mm fans that Corsair sent out to us, the RS120 Maxes. The fans look pretty awesome, and they're actually look like they're pretty thick and bulky compared to some other fans. I guess they're probably about the same size, but they feel really good quality. My only problem with these fans is there's no daisy chain with them. Like, I can't daisy chain them together. They think motherboards come with 9 fan ports these days. Like, I mean, I don't understand that at all, but maybe, they'll do something with that in the future. I don't know. But it doesn't even come with a daisy chain adapter in the box with the fans, which is a huge letdown. This is a $100 pack of fans. A $100 pack of fans that is not daisy chainable. That means I've got to go get find one in my box over here if I've got one, or I've got to order a fan hub so that I can plug all of these fans up, which if I'm spending $100, I shouldn't have to do that. So I'm not a fan of these fans, but we're gonna use them anyway because they sent them out to us. Another thing about the back side of the case is it's full mesh back panel, which I think is pretty cool. It will have plenty of breathability for the fans to come in on the inside of there. You can remove this chassis here, or part of the chassis to put the fans in. We're probably not going to do that, but that is possible. I don't see a ton of cable management options for the fans, like to put the wires through. I guess you can put it through the rubber casing there that you do everything else. But one really cool part that I want to show you about this case that I do think is pretty awesome, right there is SSD trays here built into the side, and they're tucked away. Like, you can't see them from the front of the case. Like, I think that's excellent use of all the space in the case. So I think it's pretty awesome that you could run through these and have the SSDs here on the side and out of the way, tucked away. That would be awesome. This does come with standard front pin, front IO stuff. So, you know, I do like that we have the front panel all in one notch, so you don't have all those cords you have to deal with. And it's got USB 3 and USB-C, and it's all black, so it'll blend in nicely with the stealth build that we're using. You have another tray, couple trays here for SSDs if you would like, and of course the cutout for your power supply, which is a nice touch as well. All right, so as I'm putting these fans in, a couple of things that I do like about the fans is, one, because I'm gonna have to have them flipped, they do put a logo on this side, so it will look pretty good from the back side. You know, not as good as reverse blade fans, but they will look pretty good from the back side because of this logo. And another thing that I think is pretty cool is this screw right here. All right, and hopefully you guys can see that, but this is the screws that it comes with, and I think this should be the standard for all fan screws from here on out. Look at those threads. Like, it's only like 2 threads on there, or 1 thread that's kind of thicker, and it makes fan installation so much easier. I mean, if the fans had an adapter to where I could daisy chain them, they would be perfect. All right, so we got the 2 120mm fans installed. There is a little bit of gap in space there, and I misspoke a little earlier in the video. This only holds 2. I think I might have said that it held 3, or I may have edited that part out. Depends on how I said it. So it holds 2. And it makes it really easy because you can just pop this out, pop the fans in, and we can put it back here in the case like so. Let's put this a little closer so you can see. All right, so then all we have to do is set it right back in here, and we should be able to put fans back in, but cords are kind of in the way. Maybe we can put them up under right there. Okay, perfect. So we got those back in there. We're just gonna put our screw in. And for the fans, now I guess I didn't need to do that this time. But for fan installation, I really like this Fantech, like big bulky dude. It makes fan installation much easier, but with these fans being the way the screws are, I think it'd be easy. But they do have a tiny little gap down here in the bottom. Hopefully you can see that, where the cords can kind of come through to the back. So they do have some cable management situations there. It was just hard to see it visually earlier because of there was no fans. So that's pretty awesome. And there's a bunch of space there. And then we'll put the fan in the back, and then we'll be ready to put the motherboard in. Okay, so a really cool feature that I do like is, it's pretty subtle, but there is a tiny hook right there where you can run the fan cord back to the back, which I think is pretty cool. And it's just a subtle touch, but you know, it's a touch nonetheless. But I think this case is looking pretty good. But here's kind of what we got so far with the black fans. And depending on how tall the tower cooler is, we may put the other 3 fans up there. I don't know, but we'll just kind of see how it looks. But let's show you some of the other parts we're gonna put in this build. All right, so we're gonna pause a minute on the case and talk about our motherboard and CPU. And we've got the B650M PG Lightning motherboard. It's an AM5 motherboard. It's gonna be really solid. ASRock, these Phantom motherboards and the Riptide motherboards are great budget boards. They have pretty good VRMs. So we're gonna get this thing out and get it ready to put the CPU in. And the CPU that we're using is the Ryzen 5 7500F. Love this CPU. I actually picked this up from AliExpress for only $100. In their summer sale, it was like, you know, I think I got like $30 off or something. Only paid $100 for this, and only paid like $105, $109 for the motherboard. So $200, you got AM5 and the best budget combo, I think, on the market right now. So we're gonna put this in there, and it can run a plethora of GPUs at a very high level. All right, we got the CPU in there, and we've already talked about the other parts like the RAM and the SSD, so we're just gonna throw those in there. Now, one thing we've already talked about with the SSD, it comes with a heat sink. It's already applied and locked on there, so all you've gotta do is put in this SSD like you normally would, and you've got a nice little heat sink attachment that's ready to go for you to install. All right, so this cooler is a big old beefy boy, that's for sure. And it comes with pre-applied thermal paste, which is awesome. Corsair always has this nice little triangular pattern here, which I think is cool. All right, so we have this cooler installed. Again, it's a big beefy dude. One thing to note about it is, of course, the RAM clearance, but what I do like is the fans are on these sliders, so they have like little notches on them, so you can kind of lift the fans up. So I have the fans slightly lifted like 1 or 2 notches above where they will actually go, so that you can actually, you know, get them off your RAM sticks, and you will have a little bit of space there, and it should still cool your CPU just fine. All right, so a couple things I'd like to talk about after we've got the motherboard in and everything kind of plugged up is, number one, up here at the top, the cables, there's decent amount of room up top away from the motherboard, which I like. But the only thing that's kind of a pain is this SSD tray back here. This SSD tray kind of gets in the way of some of your cables, so you kind of have to like loop the cables up at the top there. So from the back side, what I'm talking about is this tray here is kind of in the way when it comes to, you know, your cables. I had to do this fan cable around the outside because it didn't have enough slack to come here, and I don't like plugging that up in the middle of the motherboard. But either way, I mean, you do have a lot of room to kind of stuff the cables. I have no zip ties in there, and that looks pretty clean, but we haven't put the GPU in yet, so we're gonna do that in just a second. But the other thing I'd like to talk about is the power supply. So it comes with this bracket, which is for a SFX power supply, like a small power supply that would go like in an ITX build, and it has this little shelf for it to sit on. Well, it does support a full ATX power supply, as you can see here. The only issue I have with that is there is no support bracket underneath it, and that does concern me a little bit, but it's probably okay. I mean, there's no real play in it or anything like that, so that's just a minor detail. But other than that, everything looks pretty good. So let's show you the graphics card we're gonna use for this build, and we'll play some games. And for this build, we decided to go with the 7900 GRE from Gigabyte. It's got 16 gigabytes of VRAM. It's gonna be awesome for this build at 1440p. So let's throw it in there, and there's a couple more things about the case I wanna show you, and then we'll play some games. All right, so the last couple things about the case that we'd like to go over is it does look like here that you can take this off and vertically mount the GPU, but that's not the case. You do have to buy their vertical mounting kit to do that. And with this big old bulky cooler, there is almost no clearance between this and the graphics card, so you almost have to like remove the fan here to get the graphics card out. And of course, we need to see that there is one USB-C to a USB 3.0 cables up here at the top. Now we could put 3 more fans up here, and it does have a nice little magnetic removal situation where we could use that to remove and install an AIO or fans up here at the top. You could also use that and remove that if you need to like help you get the cords run through the back there, but that's totally up to you. Overall, wasn't a super hard case to build in by any means. So what we're gonna do is install everything on this computer and see how the airflow goes with all the side panels and everything on, and see if we get enough airflow to cool everything properly. All right, so we just got done testing this PC in the PC case, the 2500X from Corsair, and it did really well. It cooled perfectly fine. I know a lot of people gripe about the cooling of the fish tank cases, but it did pretty good. We tested just 3 games because this video is more about the case than the performance of the parts, but the performance of the parts is pretty awesome. Starfield at 1440p, max settings, no upscaling. We were able to get, you know, around like 70-ish FPS in Atlantis, and in some fighting scenes inside a building, we got like 100 and something FPS, so really solid performance there. Then we tried Warzone, the Resurgence game mode, at 1440p, ultra settings, so not the extreme settings, no upscaling, and we got like 150 to like 170 FPS. It was just depending on what part of the map you were on in Warzone. And if you wanted to turn on FSR, you could get like close to 300 FPS, which is crazy, with frame gen though. And of course we had to try Fortnite. Now Fortnite on AMD, with the last AMD graphics card driver update, DX12 is kind of a stuttery mess. Normally DX12 is better with AMD GPUs, but it's been a stuttery mess on everything that I've tried it on the 7900 GRE, 7800 XT, the 5700 XT, all those graphics cards that I've tried recently have been pretty bad. So we actually ran it at DX12. It took 4 games before it finally balanced out, and we got like 240-ish, 250-ish FPS on performance settings on DX12, but it took 4 games to get there. And then on performance mode itself, performance mode actually is doing better with the AMD recent update, because we got like over 200, actually over 300 FPS, and our 1% lows were like 100 and something. And so that's pretty awesome. And all the while, our temperatures for this PC stayed stayed in the 50s for both CPU and GPU temp, which I think is really awesome. So this airflow is perfectly fine with this case. I really like it. Cable management was pretty decent. Everything about it's pretty awesome. Let me know what you think about this case down in the comments. The only drawback I would say is it is pretty expensive compared to the other fish tank options, but it is Corsair and they build good stuff. So let me know what you think about it down in the comments. Thanks again for Corsair for sending out these parts. And if you want to watch where I flip PCs to buy my wife a pool, then you know where to click.